a short introduction to Mkhulu Mbazo. Mshweti is a poet, a historian, filmmaker, and spiritual guide. He explores Abantu spirituality and is the author. I've read that book. I used to believe in my life before. There's this thing when Christianity, we always believe that it's a white man's religion. Mkhulu Mbazo wrote a book, and that book, I think all those copies, without even being advertised, were all sold to individuals, and because of the content. I think that speaker, what he managed to bring out, the Bible and the black people, with how close this whole spirituality, Christianity, what actually Christianity is not something African Abelungu, is something which Abelungu stole from Africa, took it to Europe, and made it look like it's their own creation. Let me leave it to you, Mkhulu Mbazo, and please come to the podium. La cook by Christian, Bumzalwane nami. So these things here.
Thank you, Program Director. Greetings, Mr. Chairman of the Board, the Captain, and everyone who's gathered here on this August occasion. Thank you very much for inviting me this evening. I do not take lightly this opportunity that I've been afforded to share with you some spiritual insights from the spirit work. And for me, personally, this is very significant. This event will take place in the month of September, because according to the Abantu calendar, we're actually at the beginning. This is actually New Year in terms of the Abantu calendar. This month is actually called Umandulo, from the word Andula or Andulela, meaning the beginning. So our month did not start on some random day called the 1st, but it began at the setting of the new moon. And I'm very happy that there is a member of the royal family here, Ndabezita, because he will notice that before it was called Mandolo, it was actually called Mbale, but it was changed in honor of the king of the Zulus, King Mbale at that time. So with those few words, I just want to say thank you again. I want to believe that because this is the beginning of the new year, between August and September, I would also like to believe that this was the time when the word was actually created. It's very important to understand the significance of seasons, because if you start the year at the wrong time, or your week on the wrong day, then you're out of tune with nature, you're out of reading. And you cannot control time. I suppose in my opening remarks, I've already gone straight into my presentation about Abantu spirituality. But let me begin from the beginning. First of all, giving all praise and honor to the Holy One of Israel, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, the God of our ancestors. Let me also take this opportunity and give all honor and respect to the Mshweti and the Kosi Dlamini ancestors. I honor and respect them with understanding that I come from them. That's one day I will go back to them. And that's one day I will come back from them in the full recycling of life. Thokozani, shalom, shalom. My name is Mkhulu Mbazo, Inhlaba Mkhosi, Isigijimi Sabadala. My brief is to talk about African spirituality vis-a-vis Christian spirituality, or early Christianity being in essence African. During the course of my presentation, I'm going to look at certain topics like Uphahla, libations, Ukhonza, worship, Umsebenzi, traditional ceremony, and time allowing, we'll also look at Isithembu, having more than one wife. detailed way. Inhlawulo, payment of damages if you impregnate a virgin without bearing hair. Umkhosi wekushwama, the ceremony of first fruits. And I hope really time allowing I can be able to get into that. Shalom, shalom. Let me make it clear that I'm going to use the Bible as the premise of a presentation. Because contrary to popular belief, the Bible is a book of African history. In referencing the Bible, I will also be talking about the origins and the basis of Abantu spirituality. We must remember that the Bible is not a Christian book, but precedes Christianity as a religion. We must remember that there was actually no religion called Christianity during the time of Jesus. Let me begin by saying that the word Abantu is not about race, but it's about culture. What we call in isiZulu isiko or amasiko. But briefly on the subject of amasiko, the term isiko is taken from isiZulu word sika, meaning to cut or to cut apart or to demarcate or to set aside. So the word usiko means people who have been set aside from other people through the law or umthetho. Isiko is not only our law, it is also our foundation. In the scriptures, it is also called a lamp. The law is called a lamp or our light. This way of life is called usikompilo and gives us a guideline on how we have to live. Without umthetho or isiko, we are not different from animals. But what is this culture and where does it originate from? Before we can answer that question, and by using the Bible, let us begin by looking at the origins of Umuntu. We learned that in Genesis, the first Umuntu is called Adam, from the Hebrew word Adamah, meaning the soil of the earth. This Adam is the first king, or inkosi. And that is why in isiZulu he is called Uhlanga lomhlabathi, meaning the race of the earth or the race of the soil. So the word Uhlanga lomhlabathi is the first clue that we are given about certain terminologies that we use. This Adam is the first Umuntu, but he is not Umuntu, a living soul, until he is given a breath of life. This breath of life is called Umoya. Moya in Sesotho. This Umoya is what we call Idlozi. This Umuntu is not divisible, but one. In the nature of his maker, Umvelinaki, the one who came first, or Modimo, the Most High. Before we can talk about Abantu spirituality, let us trace where they come from and not inform the spirituality. Because of time constraints, I wanted to start with the Garden of Eden, but I'm just going to go straight into the descendants of Noah after the flood, because somehow we are made to believe that we are descendants of Ham, and that we brought the curse on ourselves through the actions of Ham. But I want to put it to you today that we are actually descendants of Shem. When you look at the Bible, we find that Noah had 3 sons. The first one was Shem, the second one was Ham, and the third one was Japheth. And all humanity can trace their history from those 3 sons. But I'm going to focus more on Shem and Ham, because those are the people who populated the area called the Middle East, or the so-called Middle East, but it was part of Africa at the time, because the Middle East only came after the excavation of the Suez Canal in 1859. I'm not going to go much into the descendants of Japheth, who are the people who moved later on into Europe. But you need to understand that all these people were black. Ham could not have been black only if his father and brothers were not black. The word Ham means black. The names of Ham's children were Cush, which is an ancient name for Ethiopia or Nubia. Another one of Ham's sons was Mizraim, an ancient name for Egypt. Mizraim was also called Kemet or Hemet, and that is why you'll say sometimes Ninabaseke when we talk about Abantu. Another one of Ham's sons was Put, which is an ancient name for Libya and Somalia. Now I just want us to go briefly into how these people look like by looking into their history. The history of the children of Israel begins with Abraham, who was a black person from the Chaldeans, which was then called Babylonia, but today is in modern day Iraq. The Chaldeans were part of the Cushites or Ethiopian tribes. This Abraham later on moved on to Canaan, and Canaan was also a land of black people at the time. This Abraham had visited another feature of Abantu spirituality. He had two wives, uNdlunkulu noMamncane. uNdlunkulu was Sarai, who gave birth to Isaac, and Hagar, the maidservant, gave birth to Ishmael, and their descendants settled around Ethiopia and Egypt. These were all the people you need to remember. And this had 12 sons. He gave birth to 12 princes, who formed the 12 tribes of Israel. And so it happened that when they were growing up, they were very jealous of one of their brothers, Joseph, and they decided to sell him to the Ishmaelites who were from Egypt. And this man grew up in Egypt, and then at some point he became the governor of Egypt. He was second in command to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Now there's a very interesting story around Joseph, because at a certain point there was famine in Canaan, and his brothers and family had to go to Egypt. Egypt then was a superpower. They had to go to Egypt to ask for food. But when they got to Egypt, they could not recognize their own brother. You need to ask yourself, how come, like if it was a white man in a black land called Egypt, how come they could not recognize their own brother? It's because he looked like them. They're all black people. And then we see this again with the story of Jesus later on. When Herod wanted to kill him, his family simply took him to Africa. Logic tells us that he would not have been able to hide in Egypt if he was the only white man in Egypt. This family rose in Egypt into a very big nation. They were 70 when they came in, and by the time they left, they were about 600,000. But it happened that Moses was born during the time of slavery in Egypt. And Pharaoh had decided that they have to kill all the newborn males of the Israelites. Pharaoh's daughter found Moses in an ark amongst the reeds, and he raised up as her very own son. Now the question is, if Moses was a white person, he would not have grown up in the royal court of Pharaoh, because they would have recognized that he's not one of them. But because he was black like all of them, they could not recognize that he was Hebrew. And this Moses lived all his entire life in Africa. He never left Africa. He is the person who gave us the law. Laws like circumcision, separation of a woman after birth, separation of a woman in a menstrual cycle, inhlawulo, payment of damages, etc. If you look at all these rituals or cultures, they are only synonymous with Abantu. So I just want us now to go back again to the Garden of Eden, to this first family that was created there. And so we have these people, this first family living in paradise called Eden. In this country called Eden, there was balance and order. People did things in a certain way because they had been given a law, umthetho. In this Abantu spirituality, there was no official day for worship. They did not have a day called Isonto, for instance. The word Isonto actually comes from the word ukusonta, meaning to twist. They felt like their necks were being twisted to believe into something that was new, that they did not know. And the people that converted to this new religion were called Amakhola, from the word Kholwa. And those who did not believe were called Amaqaba, from the word Qaba, because they refused to follow this new religion. So these people worship the Creator through the way they laugh, they talk, they dress, ate and sang. There is not a single aspect of their life that is outside of worship. This form of worship is called ukukhonza. This ukukhonza is mainly done through a process of pouring libations called ukuphahla. We see the first act of ukuphahla in Genesis, when Cain and his brother Abel presented their offerings to God in the form of vegetables and animals. One person who did the biggest ukuphahla was King Solomon, who sacrificed more than 20,000 bulls in one ceremony. Ukuphahla is taken from the word ukupha, to give. This giving is done through sacrificing your food like fruits and vegetables, crops, animals and beverages. And then the word phahla means to surround yourself. So you surround yourself with your ancestors and God. The word uphahla also means the roof. So your ancestors are your roof, the shelter above you. This act of uphahla, amongst being done in spiritual places like the Kroll, the river, was also mainly done in the mountain. It was done in the mountain because a mountain is a high place, a holy place that is not contaminated by too much human activity. In isiZulu, a mountain is called Entabeni. It is similar to the word Tabeng. This word is taken from the Zulu and Sotho word Taba, meaning rejoice or be happy. Another word for this joy or the state of being joyful is called Togoza and is related to the word Togomala, meaning to be comfortable or a state of being blissful. The word Togoza is taken from the word Intogozo, meaning joy. And this word Intogozo is related to the word again Inkonzo, Into plus Nkonzo, meaning a thing that is like worship equals the word Intogozo. This means that you worship by being happy. So Intogozo is a constant state of bliss and happiness and summarizes the Abantu view of life. This happiness can be derived through a song called Ingoma, which is related to the word Ingoma for Umuti, and takes us to the word Isangoma, meaning something that looks like a song, or Isangoma, something that looks like Umuti, because Isangoma can heal through Umuti and music. Isangoma can also heal through the beating of drums or amongst many other instruments. Ugubu and Isigubu. Interestingly enough, these words Isigubu and Ugubu are taken from the word Uba, meaning to celebrate or to rejoice, and Umgubu, meaning a celebration in the same vein as Togoza. This worshipping through celebration also involves work. Have you ever noticed how Abantu women are always singing when they are working? Or they will be humming a song. So in Abantu spirituality, there is no separation between work and worship. Even when they are planting, they will be singing. Harvesting crops, they will be singing as a community. When they are building a house, they will be singing. And they will be drinking a traditional beer called Mqomboti. This explains why a traditional ceremony is called Umsebenzi in isiZulu. Interestingly enough, the process of healing is also called Insabenzo, meaning work in isiZulu. So through healing, we're also worshipping God. This life was centered around the veneration or the honoring of ancestors, because Abantu believe that life is eternal and does not end with physical death. We believe that when people die, they go back to their ancestors. This is confirmed in Genesis 15 verse 15, when Abraham is told that he will die in his old age and go back to his fathers and his ancestors. So therefore Abantu honor their ancestors in accordance with the commandment. Honor your parents so that you can have a long life in the land that I'm giving you. We only have to go back to that verse again when Abraham is told that he will die and join his ancestors. In isiZulu Bible it reads, Kepha wena uyakuya kuyihle ngokuthula umbelwe usumdala. It is specific and unambiguous. It says you will go back to Oyihlo, who are the ancestors. This explains why a father is called Uyihlo in isiZulu. The word has its roots from Ihlo, which means the eye. And when you give the word Uyihlo a certain sound in pronunciation, it gives you another meaning. Uyihlo, meaning you are the eye. So your father and your mother are the eyes that look after you. You actually get to see God through their eyes. And this important commandment says you must respect Uyihlo no Nyogo, meaning the ancestors. In other ways, the respect and the honoring of ancestors is actually the true worship of God. So generally, this commandment also highlights the need for an orderly society by respecting elders in general. But there is another aspect of this commandment that people normally overlook. This commandment denotes that life on the physical earth is more precious than life in the ancestral world, or the so-called heaven. This explains why the prophet Moses gave us this simple commandment: choose life and not death. Because heaven is supposed to be here on earth. So while that should not be feared because life is eternal, you should not be too willing to go into heaven. It is advisable for you to try and hang on to this physical life a little longer by respecting your parents and your fellow men. In conclusion, I have to be very quick because I only have 30 minutes. I was hoping to go to that. Or maybe you wanted to give me that permission to. In conclusion, having spoken at length about African spirituality in this month of Abantu, in this evening of stars, I find it fitting that I should conclude with this poem that I wrote many years ago. I quote, a tribute to my being. If you want to know who I am, look with me at the bubbling waters of the Limpopo. You'll see my image blacker than the night, darker than my shadow. For I was drawn in Africa Eden, colored by the sun black. I dyed my hair in the black Umfolozi river. It was combed by the Mozambique current. I circumcised in Kilimanjaro. I emerged reborn. I climbed to the top of the Egyptian pyramids to be transfigured by the stars. I solved the riddle of the great Sphinx by speaking in an Asian language. I have known the man in the moon since time immemorial. He illuminated my path as I wandered in the Namib desert. On the banks of Utugela, I danced Ubungoma with the ancestors. I was humbled by the beauty of the Zulu maidens in the Umhlanga ceremony. In the Mystic Lake Funduzi, I was initiated in the ways of prophets. I passed with distinction. I am the slave that survived the middle passage to become the master of my soul and inscribe my legacy on the Senegalese sands. At the back of Sarabatman, I carried the cross of a descendant who lived to tell the story of crucifixion. I lead the way with the scarf of Zulu kings in the holy mountain of Tlalabat. I inherited the kingdom of Ezuri. On the chest of Ukashaba, I played Umlabalaba with the stories that reigned from the prayers of Queen Mojaj. In the royal court of Mshweshwe, I freely dispense justice with the wisdom of Solomon. In the winds of the Zimbabwe ruins, I bask in the color of the colorful Ashanti lawn. From the clear sky blue heavens, I drain the rain that watered the evening vineyards. The tales I told in the fireplace are longer than the night. They remain tattooed in the back, in the caves of the Khoisan. I am the regeneration of the spirit of Hinza. In my vein flows the blood of the Maasai warriors. I am the warrior spirit that guided Tojai regiments in the war of Isandra. Before the snake ascended the altar, the lion and the lamb grazed on the corn and seeds on the palm of my hand. I caught the Bobani worms before the elders beats and composed with them the first melody before dawn. Together we sang Imbobe, choreographed the wind and trees, and navigated the distant horizons. I planted the seeds of the Morona tree and showered under the waterfalls of milk from Cape to Cairo. I carved the path for future generations and spiced the Indian Ocean with the salt of my sweat. I sprayed Bambata with war interlace and shielded him in the forest of Ngaja. I am the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I came before sound and light. When God discovered Eden, I discovered God. Unquote. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. My name is Mkhulu Mbazo. It's the kitchen Sabadala. So, Azania. Shalom, shalom.